All right. So we will start off today with the biggest news in the sports world, and that is a record that many people thought could never be broken, as with many of Wayne Gretzky's records. The goal record, as of recording, it was broken by Alex Ovechkin yesterday against the Islanders, showcasing that wicked shot that he still got after however many years he's been in the NHL, probably longer than both of us have been alive at this point.
Yep.
Um, and that was 895. That record that stood for however many years at this point finally falls, and sets potentially a new unbreakable record. Um, I'll just send it over to you right away in terms of like, is this something you ever thought you would see in your
Oh
lifetime?
God, no. This one was right up there with the point record. I mean, now I think this kind of frames it and shows exactly how unbreakable the point record is. Now that you actually get a comparison of the guy who now owns the goal record and how far away he is from 2,800 points or whatever. But I mean, it's pretty special. I don't think any of us really thought that Ovi would ever get here. I mean, everybody knew how talented he was as a goal scorer. There were talks about him being the best scorer of all time in the early 2010s, right? He didn't even need all of the career accolades. Everybody knew what he'd already done in his prime. I think the most impressive part about it has just been his longevity and his endurance to be able to get there. And just the way he's been able to evolve his game has really been incredible. And that's funny because it's not something you necessarily hear people talking about, considering at this point, for the better part of, I don't even know, it's got to be close to 10 years where he's been scoring a vast majority of his goals from right on a dot. But the second that the athleticism went, the second that his skating ability went, it didn't slow him down that much. I mean, he maybe dropped from 50 goals a year to, what, 45? He just found a new way to do it, right? He no longer needed to rely on that incredible just ability that he was gifted. He learned a way to do it, and I mean, he's still ticking, and it's insanely impressive. The sky's the limit with a guy like Ovechkin. I think the only thing that's going to decide when the Russian machine stops is himself. Because truthfully, the way he's playing right now, he could keep doing it for years to come. He could hit 1,000. It's just whether he allows us to be able to witness something like that, right?
Yeah. Because how old is he at this point? He's
39.
like got to be late 30s, yeah, 39. So I mean that's possible. Like obviously, I think we talked a little bit about it before the podcast in terms of what the long-term vision looks like, where he's got one more year left on his contract after this, and it's looking like he'll probably play that out. So we'll get one more year, so that's another however many goals, 30, 40 goals to add on top of that. And so yeah, they probably won't get past 1,000, but it's still insane that we got to this point. You talked about one of the most impressive parts about it being how he's adjusted his game, but I also think it's just really important to note, like, the fact that he's done it in this specific era of hockey.
Oh, yeah.
Like the idea of scoring nearly 900 goals in like the 2000s, the 2010s, versus scoring that amount of goals in the 80s and 90s, those are widely different. Especially when you're getting the bulk of those goals in the 80s. Not to discredit what Gretzky did, there's a reason why it was so unbreakable, and there's a reason why he's unanimously considered pretty much the greatest hockey player of all time. But scoring was just higher. And you watch any highlights of the hockey at that time, and you can see why. It just kind of highlights how great of a scorer he is to say, like, he was still able to break this record, even though it seemed unbreakable because there's a little bit of an era bump. As with the points record, to say, like, Gretzky was another level, but there was also kind of that boost from playing in that certain era where scoring was higher, where you're able to rack up all those points. Because the goals record isn't even the most impressive Gretzky record. It's
not.
It is the points record. It's the assists. Because the whole thing, the
point,
most impressive stat ever
to the most impressive Gretzky. Like,
yeah.
You could list them off, like the amount of records that will probably never be broken. His single season point streak record of like 45 games or something. I don't remember the actual number, but it's something stupid. That one, obviously the career record, points in a season. hell, goals in a season. None of those are ever getting touched. And I basically, because the only way to break any of those career records is longevity, and you can't longevity your way to a season record. It's not going to happen, right? So it's tough. I think it's safe to say that Gretzky's what's the word? His legacy is safe. It's funny because I've heard the conversation of does Ovi breaking this record hurt Gretzky's legacy at all? No, not at all. It doesn't even.
No, because the whole thing is like the most impressive, I think, sports stat ever is the fact that if you take away all of Gretzky's goals, again, to which before yesterday he was the best goal scorer in the NHL in terms of accumulation. Even if you took all of that away, he would still be the number one point getter in NHL history just based on his assists alone. Like, that is the most insane stat in sport. So no, like, even though this goal record has been broken, there's no way that legacy is getting touched because he's already been able to stand on so many other things that he didn't even need it to begin with to get that point total record. But yeah, no, it is crazy just in terms of the overall scope of it. And because the other thing to look at too, I think I think there was a little bit of kind of funny business with the numbers where Gretzky scored his 894th and then he didn't score any in his last 7 games or whatever. But as a whole, Gretzky ended his career with exactly as many games as it took Ovechkin to break the record. I thought that was another thing that was particularly impressive. I saw a tweet that was like, this is the ethical way to break a record. You do it in exactly the same amount of time.
Well, didn't he do it in one less game? Wasn't that what it was? He's one better than Gretzky was what people were saying.
I think he tied it. I think he tied it with one game
under, that's right? What it was.
He got there one game faster, and then he broke the record
in the same amount
on the exact same game.
Which again, still, I'm one better than you, which is funny. But one thing that I want to give credit to Gretzky on. I don't know if it could just be me, but I watched both the games where he tied it and broke the record because I don't know. I definitely wanted to. I thought it was a pretty cool moment. But when he tied the record in Chicago, Gretzky did not look happy. The look on his face was far. It was. I mean, he corrected himself, but when the camera first cut over, it looked like it was finally dawning on him. You know, he very much had that kind of look on his face of oh fuck, it's actually gonna happen. But no, it was the complete opposite. When
he had to have known though.
I think there's a difference between having to Jesus. There's a difference between
why was he there?
Well, I know, but there's a difference between knowing that it's going to happen and actually being there and sitting in that seat and watching it happen, right? I think, because you got to realize that, sure, records are made to be broken, but we even saw it with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar when LeBron broke his record where he sat there in the front row looking like someone just pissed in his cereal. He was not happy about it, right? And it's understandable, too, because again, I don't think this damages Gretzky's legacy at all. It's something that was purely yours for 30 years. Everybody said you were the best scorer of all time, and then it's gone. And it's no longer yours. And at least partially that has to hurt, right? And, I mean, if anything, it shows us that Gretzky's a human being, right? I'm not criticizing him when I say it, but I think he showed a lot of grace when it was actually broken, because he had a massive smile on his face. Obviously, he came down, and even before the game, I saw an interview with him that basically he just talked about how Gordie Howe was when Gretzky was trying to break the record, where he was actively begging Gretzky to break it, right? It was that because that was the type of relationship they had, and I think that's special. I think that's the type of way that it should be in hockey, right? Where you want somebody to break that type of record. It's just a special moment. It's a passing of the torch, right? And I think it's a necessary thing because while Gretzky, you know what, I guess we're not going to get into it. I'm just going to say it. And if you want to argue with me in the comments, go nuts, argue with the wall. Gretzky has been a great ambassador for hockey. He's passing on the torch to Ovi now, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't think people will argue with you for him being a great ambassador to hockey.
In the last
I think people.
in the last
Well, no, I think people will argue with you for being a great ambassador for Canada. I think that's a different,
I guess
different
that's
conversation.
I get you know what, that's a fair point.
That's not what people are mad about. The hockey part of it is not what people are mad about.
That's true.
It's the whole other part of it. But yeah, no, I think in terms of talking about like kind of seeing his face breaking a little bit, I agree with you.
It's
in
just
terms
being
of,
human.
the human side of it coming through.
Yeah,
because otherwise he said all the right things and done good press on it. Which I mean, props to him because again, with the whole other side of it, he's been getting a ton of negative press. I think rightfully so, but he's been getting a ton of other negative press surrounding everything else. It's probably got to feel good for him too to kind of be able to get this, and you're going to come out of it looking good if you handle it the right way, which he has.
There's no winning
he said all the right
there
things
like. I'm going to try and find the photo of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar when he had his record broken, where he was sitting in the front row. He looked like a kid who got put on timeout, sitting on like the park bench. Like it's a pretty funny photo, but
yeah.
I think everybody's seen it. It got memed pretty hard, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The difference between him and Gretzky was Kareem was very adamant about how he wasn't happy about it, right? Like that was the whole thing going into it, where it was sure he was there. He did LeBron the honor of being there when it happened, but he clearly wasn't happy about it. And again, I still think that's fair, because at the end of the day, it is taking something from you, and it's something that you, Gretzky is however old at this point. Kareem's even older. Like, it's not something you're gonna get back, right? And it sucks, and it really sucks. But it's the way the game works, and it's what makes the game special that these records keep getting broken, even when you don't think. I mean, heck, that point record nobody thought was touchable for the longest time, and then LeBron went and did it, right? And it's almost the same thing here. Speaking of that, though, I think we can kind of transition to something which I think is a hilarious conversation. But it's an entirely just an opinion. There's no way to actually. There's no metric. There's no stat. Which do you think is more impressive? LeBron breaking the point record, or Ovechkin breaking the goal record? Because this was a real conversation they had on ESPN. I think that you can you can argue for both, and I think you'd probably be right either way, because it's a stupid conversation, but why not? Let's have it. I'm curious what your opinion on it would be.
That's I don't think I know enough about the context around scoring in basketball and the historical differences between the eras, because I think for me, if I have to just give an answer off my head, I think it is the Ovechkin record, just because of what we talked about before in terms of the era difference. Like I think that's such a stark difference in terms of what hockey was like in the 80s and 90s versus what hockey has been like in a more modern period, especially like when Ovechkin came in, right? Like that early 2000s period was known as the dead puck era for a reason. Scoring was just a lot harder, and it happened a lot less, and Ovechkin still managed to break that record without just relying on longevity. Like, obviously he's had a long career, but if he did it in the same amount of games like we talked about, I think in that way, I think it's more impressive. But again, I don't necessarily have as much context of it on the basketball side.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I feel like I would give it to LeBron just because of the fact that I think I feel like it's I think it's very silly. I think it's a silly conversation to even have.
It's impossible to compare.
Yeah, it's impossible to compare, exactly. But I think I feel like LeBron's is slightly more impressive just because I compare points in the NBA to, but now I'm disagreeing with myself. I compare points in the NBA to points in the NHL. So wouldn't the comparison be Gretzky's point record? But Gretzky's point record is definitely more untouchable than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's point record ever was. Like, because I mean, as a comparison, how close was? Let's look at this. How close was Karl Malone to break it back in the day?
Yeah.
Because I think that's really the big thing. So Kareem Abdul-Jabbar ended his career with 38,000. Karl Malone ended his career with 36, almost 37.
36. Yeah.
So again, very close. Very, very close. I mean, Karl Malone
versus...
played forever as well. Like, he played a very long time. But, I mean, still.
Yeah, but if you want to compare that to the NHL point leaderboard,
exactly.
Yager has 1,900 and Gretzky has 2,850.
Yeah, no, it's bonkers.
Like,
it's not even close.
It's not the same conversation.
Yeah, so in that sense, I agree with you, but I also, you know what, maybe partially I'm just scared of the LeBron fans. Please don't fucking kill me in the street. But I do agree with you. I think it's pretty insane. I think both of them are insane, because to get that record, just to give a comparison, it's basically averaging at least 20, isn't it like 25 points per game for 20 years? I thought that's what people were saying it was. Which, again, it's no surprise LeBron has done that, because, I mean, you just look at what he's done every single year. He's there. He does it every single season. It shouldn't be a surprise he eventually got it. But it's tough, because it's what's more impressive, averaging 25 points per game every single year or averaging 50 goals per game every single year. When you say it like that, I feel like it's 50 goals per year. So I don't know. It's a stupid conversation, but I felt like ESPN talked about it, and Stephen A. Smith seemed to have a very polarizing opinion on the matter, and which is not surprising. It's almost like that's his entire job. But yeah,
he's making the big bucks for it. What does he get paid? Like $100 million?
Oh my god. Yeah, let's not get into that.
You got some sort of new contract a while back. Yeah.
So, to kind of keep this thing moving, I think the next conversation obviously becomes, as it inevitably does, we all thought that Gretzky's goal record was untouchable. Nobody was ever going to break it. Alex Ovechkin swings in and breaks it. And now here we are. Assuming that Alex Ovechkin ends his career after, let's say, next season, because that seems to be the conversation. And he ends with, I don't know, we can assume 940, 950, who knows, right? Like, somewhere in that region. Do you think that it will ever be broken again? And if so, who do you think is a possible candidate for it to happen?
Well, I don't know. I think it's impossible to say things will never be broken. Because, I mean, who knows how the sport will change? Who knows what the next great talent that will come in will be? It's maybe the person who breaks the record hasn't been born yet. Like, it's impossible to know. There are ones we can attach to with more certainty, like Gretzky's point record. But with the goal record, I mean, we've seen it be achieved now. We know that it can be possible in a modern context. And we do have a few contenders. Austin Matthews is the one that I think a lot of people talk about, because he is, I mean, it's tricky / impossible to project out this far, because he's in the prime of his career, and we don't know what he's going to look like when he's, 35, 36, 37. He's not going to score at that same pace. But looking at the pace he's at now, he would reach the 895 mark in 1,300 games. So that's another 800 games or so. And this
easy work.
This website saying easy work. No,
easy work.
This website saying it would take him 11 more seasons of scoring at his current rate to pass the Gretzky record. Yeah. Matthews would be 37, so a couple years younger than Ovechkin. Give or take, if you give him those extra couple years to make up for the slowdown, if he does play till 39, barring no injuries, barring no nothing, impossible to project. But like, it's within the realm of possibility. Whereas if you say like, oh, it's Austin Matthews or McDavid or anybody going to break the points record, it'll be like McDavid is 70 and like playing on one leg and.
I don't think McDavid's that far off. He's not gonna. I'll to be clear on my opinion on it. I do not think that Matthews is gonna break it. I don't think anybody in the NHL currently is gonna break it. But the argument for Matthews, there is an understandable one there. Because currently, if you actually look at the stats, Alex Ovechkin scores in 60% of his games right now. 60 on the dot. To get to the record, that's what he had to do. In, I think it was 1,423 games or something stupid. Matthews, so far in his career, is averaging a goal in 64% of his games. Obviously, he's still in his prime. He's still in his 20s. That's the important thing, right? He's still in the prime of his career. And I'm sure if you looked at that number back when Ovi was 30, it'd be a very different conversation, right? But I don't necessarily think that Matthews is going to age as gracefully as Ovechkin did. I don't think his style quite lends himself as well to that. But an argument could be made that he has a pillow, 64%. He's got 4% to lose. There's a pillow there. There's a possibility that he only falls off 4%. You never know. You never know. Anything is possible. As for McDavid, I just wanted to throw this out there just to please all the Edmonton fans out there, because I am going to play devil's advocate for McDavid. He's not as far off as you might think, because when I heard people saying, "Oh, maybe McDavid will break it," I immediately laughed at that because I think that's stupid. He's not going to, but I mean, 51%. That's very respectable. Like, I mean, he's not. He'd have to crank it up 9% and then make that his average. But it's still a respectable number. And just to bully Bedard, as a lot of people have been doing this year, because I was curious. So far in his career, scoring in 28% of his games. So I don't think he's probably going to do it either. Awful, garbage.
Cut him from the team.
Unrecoverable. Trade him to the Flames for like
fraud. Yeah.
Well, it's okay. We'll fix him. But
no, the other thing to think about in terms of some of these records is there's also just the things that there's injuries and there's all that, but there's also just like league-wide stuff that nobody could predict or control as well.
Worldwide
like
stuff.
Thinking about
occasionally pandemics happened.
Like, would Ovechkin have reached this milestone sooner if he was able to play a little bit more in the COVID years, or if the 2013 lockout didn't happen and they actually played a full season then? Yep. Or if he was able to come into the league a year earlier.
The 05 lockout.
The 05 lockout was his first season. So you could argue that, he scored 52 goals in his first season anyway. Who's to say that he didn't get gypped out of an extra 50 whatever? Like, when did Gretzky... how old was Gretzky when he started playing, right? In the NHL, at least. Because he came into the WHA at, 17. So who knows, right? Like, that's not this why, it's a fun conversation to have, to say, how far can we project this out? Where will this person eventually land? But there's so many factors that are, it's the perfect amount of, extreme skill, luck, playing in the right era, adjusting your game like Ovechkin did. That's another thing.
To be honest,
a guy like Matthews needs to do.
I think that's probably the biggest thing. I think being able to adjust to your legs failing you, you're suddenly playing with maybe 25 pounds more than you were at the beginning, and still being able to score 50, that's probably the craziest thing about Ovechkin to me. Because you look at some of the goals earlier on in his career. Obviously, the one where he was on his back, put it behind his head. If Ovechkin did that right now, he'd end up in a morgue. That's the truth of it. There's no way in hell. But you know what he can do? He can plant his ass on that dot on the power play and rip him. And that's all even if that's all he can do at this point, he can do it well, and he can still do the shit out of it. And he's going to end with 45 goals this year. He's no slouch. If an argument could be made that if the difference between Ovechkin's prime, which was 55, 52 goals, and him right now, which is 45, which is nuts, by the way. If that's the difference, he adjusted pretty damn well. I don't know if not even Gretzky can say that. If you want to look at and again, the big thing with Gretzky, and the craziest thing about Gretzky's career, this is a whole other conversation, by the way, which I encourage people out there to look into this, because this is actually a pretty crazy thing. But Gretzky talks about it in his books. He dealt with injuries all throughout the end of his career. I think he got a very, very bad back injury, I believe, in 1990, that he dealt with for the final 9 years of his career, and was the reason he retired. He retired because he just couldn't deal with the pain of playing anymore. It had gotten to that point. If he had never gotten injured, Like, you look at his numbers before that 1990 season and after, it's pretty crazy. And so, again, maybe that, like, longevity and being able to adjust yourself isn't necessarily Gretzky's fault. Who knows what happens if he stays healthy. But, I mean, you look at the comparison, and it's insane. Because Gretzky is blowing Ovechkin out of the water for the first, like, 800 games of their careers. And then all of a sudden, Ovechkin creeps up on him. Because the difference is Ovechkin's line is a straight line, right?
Yeah.
That's the difference, right? While Gretzky starts to peter off at the end there.
It's the consistency. Well, you were mentioning that. I got the numbers in front of me. So looking at Gretzky's last few years, so his last season in the NHL, he only scored 9 goals in 70 games.
Yep.
Comparing that to Ovechkin, who's only played 60 whatever this season. He was hurt for a decent chunk of it, and he has 42, right? And Gretzky was a year younger, right? Like that's kind of the part of it. And you almost wonder if Gretzky didn't have those injuries, how much higher could potentially those records have been? Like if Gretzky was able to keep himself consistent to the level that Ovechkin was, not that that's his fault that he had that injury, obviously, but if he was able to maintain that level, thinking even like looking at these schedules, like didn't they used to play 80 games in a season as opposed to 82? That's what I'm looking at here in terms of like him maxing out, Gretzky maxing out at 80 games in a season for the entire 80s, still scoring. This is insane. In a 5-year stretch, he scored 92 goals, then 71, then 87, then 73.
Like, I mean, you could, again, just to play devil's advocate, you could make the same argument about Ovechkin, right, with the lockouts. Everybody has their share. I will say that maybe Gretzky's is a little worse. Just, I don't know. Based on everything I've read about the injury that he had.
It's just impossible to compare. Like,
exactly.
It's just
That's true. That's very true.
Because there's so many things you can go back and forth. Like, even continuing on Gretzky, what if the NHL let him play during his WHA years, where he gets to play a couple extra years?
I thought it was only one.
When he's
wasn't it only?
No,
one?
He played 2.
Oh,
no, played 2 seasons. He played for. I mean, again, like in the modern day. Oh no, never mind. It was just one. They haven't split up on here because it's across 2 teams. But still, if the NHL was. I mean, he was 18 then. The NHL allows 18-year-olds to play in the NHL, as we know, with Bedard. So who knows? Maybe that adds to it. He scored 46 in the WHA that year, which wouldn't have counted towards the
Well, actually,
the overall mark.
I was pretty sure that his Gretzky also. I think this is technically different than the playoffs plus regular season record, but the what's it called? The hockey professional goals record, I think, where it's just in any professional league, overall goals combined. Gretzky has like 1,100 because of his WHA days or whatever. And a lot of people are saying, yeah, Ovi's not touching that, and they are probably right. I guess depends on, does the KHL count when Ovi's playing over there and he's 42?
Yeah.
And shooting it from the blue line and
scoring. I mean, like Gordie Howe played until he was like 80, right? Like I'm sure he's probably got some.
How many?
He played in the WHA after as well. I don't know.
He played like 10 years in the WHA. You know what? This is a whole other rabbit hole that I kind of want to go down. So yeah, I'm curious.
And I mean, Yager's like still playing, right? Like, somewhere in a Czech league somewhere.
just to answer that question, actually, yeah, it's true. Yager is still playing. I mean, he's probably scoring 2 goals a year at this point. But I don't know if you've seen clips of him playing. I saw some not that long ago, and yeah, he's. I don't think the NHL comeback's coming, buddy. But he's
52.
He's still a prospect. He's still hoping. He's still hoping that the Pens call his number when somebody goes down. But 1,071 total professional goals for Mr. Gordie Howe. So I think Gretzky is just barely on top of him in that. So Ovechkin How many does Ovechkin have actually? Because he played a few years in the KHL.
Well, yeah, he would have played in the K. That would count for the lockout, right? Like that
Yeah.
would give you the.
Oh, it might be a little bit harder to find for Ovi.
Okay, so the sidebar on Yager. Yeah, no, he scored 5 goals last season in the Czech league, playing 39 games.
Yeah, that's about right.
The season before, 15 games, 0 goals, 4 assists.
Because he owns the team. That's the whole thing, right? Like his father owned the team, and then oh no, I think I don't remember the story anymore. But oh, I can't find it. I can't find his professional. Oh, that sucks. If anybody figures that out and wants to drop it in the comment section, feel free, because I would love to know. I can't find it right now. I'd probably have to go digging down some rabbit hole. But I know with Gordie Howe it's a little bit more available because people have that's more of a conversation, right? With how long he played in the WHA. But still, it's still very interesting. It's pretty insane that any of this even happened, because now Alex Ovechkin is just kicking the can down the road, and now we get to keep talking about this record. We got to watch the goal record get set, which is not something I ever thought I'd be able to say, because of that is the one thing that, whether it be better or for worse, Gretzky has set a ton of records that we will probably never see broken. Ovechkin has given us the opportunity to see at least one of those records go. And while I get it, for a lot of people it is bittersweet to see it go, I still think it's pretty special. I think that's what the game's about, right? It's about passing the torch. And I think it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool moment for the current NHL, because it's showing that things are just getting better. And the players just keep on getting better. The talent just keeps on getting better. And you never know what could happen.